Planning Board is now in session. Good evening. First item on the agenda is the election of the chairman, reappointment of planning board members. I would suggest we wait till we have a five-member board. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing, major site plan, Kane's Crossing, and the public hearing for the lower impact development for Kane's Crossing. I'll ask the town planner to give us an update on what progress has been made since our last meeting, which was back on May 1st, was it? Yep, May 1st.
Well, since our last meeting, the applicant submitted revised and updated plans to address comments from Fuss and O'Neill, which were primarily all answered already. There were 4 or 5 lingering items that hopefully have been resolved for tonight's meeting. The lower impact development special permit requires a quorum of 4, so we won't be able to act on that this evening, but the major site plan approval only requires a quorum of 3.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Bemis, good evening.
Good evening.
Don't forget to introduce yourself and your team.
I will. Peter Bemis, Engineering Design Consultants, here with Bartolini Builders. We did make revisions to the site plans and have a revision date on all the sheets. And we were doing that in conjunction with our Board of Health plans as well. So all of our plans are dated through May 5th. And of the changes, I know that Mr. Jenks had asked for a tie. So there's a tie coming across from our subdivision, if you will, on our side of the street, north side, to a tie on a Worcester County highway bound on Southville Road. So we've got the meets and bounds for that. We still have the 3 bounds that we're going to install on our perimeter points. The other housekeeping item was the extension of the buffer zones. So those are done on the plans. Those repeat on all the other sheets as well. We had talked about the distinction between the open space areas. We have the open space area to the north that is fully restricted as part of our conservation approval, and then we've got the area below that that's going to have limited activities. Was part of the description for the decision that we had given you. And I'm trying to recall the other item. There was an item for Mr. Kane. You wanted some historical references to Officer Kane, and that was also provided as part of your packet. And it's on the board now.
Peter, why don't you read that so the public can see it? Can you read it?
The original, there's a letter.
Then I can do it. I will do that. I'm going to do this?
I can.
All right, here you go.
I'd like to do it since I knew Frank, and he went to school with one of my brothers. Do you want to read that, or you want me to read the letter? And
Any way you want to do it, Jack.
well, I'll read the commendation. Actually, I did a little letter, and just for the people at home. Then this is a commendation that was up on the board, and then there was a very good write-up in the local newspaper about Frank Kane when he passed away. So essentially, I've got, Dear Mr. Chairman, to answer the planning board's question regarding the name of our over 55 age-restricted development, Kane's Crossing at Lincoln Square, and in particular Kane Circle, the name of the roadway. The property at the intersection of Parkville Road and Southville Road was acquired from Frank W. Kane Sr., a longtime Southborough family. Frank W. Kane Jr. was appointed July 27, 1982 to the Southborough Police Department, quickly being promoted up through the ranks to sergeant on February 10, 1987, continuing his work for the town of Southborough until his untimely death in 2003 at the age of 45. Enclosure will find a testament from Connors Consulting, the police supervisor program 2003. Also included is an article for the Metro West Daily News dated July 18, 2003, attesting to how well thought of Frank was within the community. Bartolini Builders, Inc. is proud to name Kane Circle in honor of 21-year veteran of the police department, Frank W. Kane, Jr. And then that up there is a Connors Consulting, the Police Supervisor Program, Bedford, Mass., 2003. Sergeant Frank W. Kane, Jr. of Southborough Police Department was a student in this very class just 2 years ago. A sergeant with 21 years of department experience, Frank passed from this world July 15, 2003, at the age of 45 years after a battle with kidney cancer. Frank was always interested in police work and improving his craft, so he enrolled in the police supervisor for sergeants and lieutenants, which began on September 10, 2001. The next day, the world changed for all of us with bombings of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. To the people who knew and loved Frank, the world changed again this past July. Frank was a good cop, a good sergeant who felt close to the officers he supervised. He was always wanted to help them and made sure that whatever questions was asked of him, that he gave them back with the correct answer. He felt it was his duty to treat those under his command with respect and decency. Brave, honorable, steadfast, and to the end, Frank did his best to conceal the depths of his illness, even coming back to work between treatments. He left this world a better place and left an indelible mark on those who served with him. Sadly missed and equally grateful for knowing him, this class is dedicated to Sergeant Frank W. Kane, Jr., and it was dedicated in loving memory to Sergeant Frank W. Kane, Jr. That was in 2003. Then there is a big article which is too lengthy to read. It's actually starts on the front page of the newspaper and then continued in the back. But I will read the caption above, which I think some people might appreciate, knowing Police Chief William Caleri, who was the chief at the time that he died. Frank was a townie, and he loved the town of Southborough. He was very liked. He had a big ear. He did a lot of listening and a lot of compassion. That was by Southborough Police Chief William Caleri. It's a very interesting article, too.
Very good, Jack. Thank you. This is what we do when we try to capture the and memorialize the in writing these names that we assign to the different roads and places in town. So future generations can understand it and learn. So I guess with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Bemis. There was one other item, and that was the apostrophe S.
That's corrected on all the sheets. It's
Okay.
Kane.
Yeah, I don't, did you say that earlier?
I did, but that's okay.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yep. Yep, and we did that with our official street address forms as well.
Board of Health wanted to make sure that there was some kind of signage that the snow storage wasn't on the septic system. Just something.
Why don't you go ahead? One other item here.
Peter, the Board of Health had a suggestion or a recommendation that some kind of sign or indication to let people who snowplow know not to push the snow onto the septic system leaching area. I don't know if it's possible with the way the benches are or what, but in that last email, he had written that at the, Paul Pazinski, Board of Health agent, had written that at the end of the email. Everything else was fine.
Okay.
That was his last comment.
We did have snow storage areas that were defined, and it's definitely not on the leaching area, but we could do we could add a sign.
He said
There's a
something that
problem.
just reminded people not to push the snow onto the leaching area. That's all.
I mean, I'd like to not have to revise the plans yet again, so I would agree to that as a condition, or if we could just do a separate 8.5 by 11 exhibit.
Yeah, I think that would suffice if you just
Right, thank you.
or wrote it on the plan, on the final plan, say snow storage sign to be installed or something, snow storage warning or prohibited or something.
Okay.
Like a note.
Not a problem.
I'll open it up to the board. Mr. Jenks?
We have a draft site approval document, and I wanted to ask who prepared that?
Mr. Jenks, Elizabeth and I prepared that in conjunction with Mr. Bartolini and his attorney, and then Aldo reviewed it, town council.
Good job. Do you want to get into any of the parts of the approval, or at this time, or see if there's public comment first, or?
Sure. If you had nothing else, then we'll go to
No, I don't.
Mrs. Luttrell, and then open it up to the public, and then if you want to, we want to go back. Mrs. Luttrell,
All my questions have been answered.
anyone from the public, any questions or comments? Back to you, Mr. Jenks.
I had some, what was basically wording questions, and I don't think any of them are important enough to make changes to it, so I have nothing.
So, we are able to vote on the site plan with 3 members. We are not able to vote on the special permit for the lower impact development. That requires a vote of four members. So if the board has no objections, we can vote on the site plan, or if there are objections, we'll hear them. If not, we'll ask you, Jack, if you want us to vote on that tonight, and then we'll talk about how we're going to handle the lower impact development.
Right, so. No, you won't.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so we'd like to vote and close out the site plan if we can. We do agree with the draft decision, and we agree with Aldo Cipriano's comments, with just the one caveat is that he's got, it's a nuance in language that just doesn't work because he's changing the meaning, and that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention again about the 2 conservation restricted areas. Okay?
I'd spoken to you about it earlier on.
Microphone, Jack.
Karina, the paragraph where I'd spoken to you earlier on, so I don't know if there's a comma missing, so he misinterpreted what Aldo was going on.
Yes, so I will reiterate that to Aldo in case he has any lingering, because we have during the appeal period to finalize that language, is written in the decision. So it shouldn't be a problem because they're relatively minor changes, and it was, I think, like a just a misreading of how I punctuated it.
Yeah, we've all read it the same way, so I think, all right.
So again, we'd like to try to close out that item, and we can correct the one nuance in language that Aldo had. Otherwise, we're good with his comments. Thank you.
I think we should make that, the vote then, subject to Aldo's approval of a change in his language.
Yes, the only point of contention was the very bottom comment on that page where there was, I had punctuated the decision language to make it look like the no disturbed areas restricted by the Conservation Commission is what we were talking about. And so I clarified it on that topic with Jack, but I haven't had a chance to go over it with Aldo. The other comments weren't of great substance. It was helpful to clarify. So and the decision also says that there's language can be reviewed by Aldo in the appeal period to start. those two particular points that
Okay.
that comment
So it is
addresses.
there.
It is there, but I don't think it would be an issue to even say addressing all those comments and as part of the vote.
Yeah, that's gotta be subject to his approval.
So what we're all looking at is, there's a draft decision of major site plan approval. It's dated today. Town planner prepared this draft. And you've seen it, you got it earlier today, Jack. And everyone seems to be okay with it. Although, after the vote, this can still be changed before the chairman signs it and submits it to the town clerk. And if there are any changes, then before the chairman signs it, it would be reviewed again with you to make sure it's cool. That's the way we do it, to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the document called the Decision of Major Site Plan Approval. So that's the draft document. And then we have the plans. And the latest revision date is May 5th. Is that correct,
That's
Peter?
correct.
All the plans are May 5th, including the ones you said you did with Board of Health?
Board of Health, right. The whole project set is 5/5.
Excellent. So the vote would be to approve the major site plan approval, the major site plan dated May 5th. This is the plan that we would be voting on.
I just want, I don't mean to correct you, but the date of the plan is actually December 17th, 2015. That's the date of the plan, revised through
Yep.
May 5th. Just want to
And
make
then
sure.
we have another reference to the photometric plan, which is dated April 4th, 2017.
That's correct.
That's in the decision also. So if that's what you want, if you want us to have a motion to approve the site plan, then we'll entertain that. And then our next planning board meeting is on June 5th. But it's pretty rare that we don't have at least 4 members. Usually we always have the 5 here. So it's pretty rare that we have this situation tonight. But what we'll do is we'll check and see check on the availability of members between now and then. And then if we're able to get together for a one agenda item between now and then, which would cover the vote for the lower impact development special permit, we'll make an effort to try to do that. And then the fallback would be the June 5th. And then in between, these little things that between Aldo and you and the town planner can get finalized also. Does that sound like a good plan?
Very good.
Just hold on a minute. So the little discussion here is, earlier today, town council called me with a couple of questions on this the draft decision. And one of his, which resulted in one of his comments, which is referring to the ZBA's granting of the 11 units. And that was way back in April of 2016. So, so he was, usually there's not a big gap in time between that and the site plan. So could you just explain what was going on between when the ZBA, if it's just normal routine, you know, your routine progress in doing these projects, and if that's the answer, fine. But it's just, he brought it up that it seemed like a bit of a gap between that special permit and this action. Not in a bad way, but it just seemed like.
I mean, just, it does take time to get through this process, unfortunately. And then there was other due diligence items that we needed to take care of. But if you look at the plan dates and you look at the decision, they were all done in a timely manner. It took a while to get through this process.
Right. The way I related it, my memory was to town council was that, you know, this is there's time that's needed for design, and this has been praised as a pretty good design. So the extra time, whatever extra time, if somebody thinks you took extra time, it seems like it's well worth it.
Well, it was, you know, we went through the Board of Health, we went through the conservation, the stormwater, testing out in the field. So that type of thing took a long time. The fact that it was so dry last year they made us wait until, or went before and then after. So they didn't let us test in the dry period, so those different items.
Okay. So that, Aldo's comment regarding that, reference to that ZBA permit, special permit, will be incorporated. So that the three permits, the ZBA's special permit for the lid, and the site plan approval will all be captured in that one document, so that people won't be missing any of the components.
Yeah, that's fine. We reference all that on the cover sheet as well.
Yep.
The zoning board of appeals decision and then their extension that they granted. Okay, thank you.
Peter,
Mike,
the
Phil.
date on the plans is, give me the original, and then the revised is May 5th?
Yeah, so December 17th, 2015 is the plan set. So original issue date is December 17th, 2015. And then we're revised through 5/5/17.
All right, I'll take a whack.
Mr. Jenks.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the planning board approves site plan review of Kane's Crossing at Lincoln Square and over 55 development in Southborough, Massachusetts. Plan set dated 12/17/2015, revised through 5/5/17.
Second.
Conditions? We have to have subject to the conditions.
I'm sorry.
So it would be,
You wanna read that?
conditions 1 through 18, I guess, would be good enough.
Am I reading these into the motion?
I just refer to the document and the conditions 1 through 18, Mr. Jenks.
The approval document is entitled Decision of Major Site Plan Approval, 141 Southville Road, Kane's Crossing at Lincoln Square, and over 55 development. The document contains a procedural history, the findings of the board, and notes that there were no waiver requests. And it is subject to 18 conditions.
Second. And Aldo's comments will be incorporated in the final decision?
Again, the motion is based on this draft decision and the 18 conditions, which we have reviewed and which the developer has reviewed right up until today. And so if there's no other questions or comments, or anybody wants the conditions read, then we'll take action on the motion as it was made. Seeing none, all in favor? 3-0, the site plan is approved. And I guess the town planner will get back to you with, hopefully, maybe, a date between now and January 5th for action, June 5th, for action on the lower impact development. Now, that period of approval for the lid expires on May 29th. So you would have to request an extension probably to about June 9th, a couple days after the 5th, for insurance. Are you requesting that tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Jenks?
Mr. Chairman, I move that in accordance with the proponent's request, we extend the date of approval to June 5th. I'm sorry, June 9th, 2017.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? 3-0. So that extends the approval period for the lid, which now allows us to continue the public hearing to June 5th. But if we decide to meet before then, I guess the vote would be to continue the public hearing to a date between now and June 5th, which will be duly posted in advance.
Mm-hmm. 48 hours.
If we can do that, we will. If Aldo says we can't, then we'll see you on June 5th.
All I have to do is post 2 days in advance, right?
Right. 48 hours. So we need a motion to continue the public hearing for the lower impact development.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the public hearing for the lower impact Development special permit for Kane's Crossing at Lincoln Square and over 55 development to June 5th, 2017.
Or sooner if,
Yeah, that's the permit.
or sooner if appropriate. Or if,
I don't know. I think we have to have a date certain.
Mimi, any opinion? Hold on a second, Phil. George, do you know?
Excuse me?
Do you know if we can do that? Continue a public hearing to some date between now and another date? See you on June 5th.
That's what I'm telling Jack, is that we should just do it to a time certain.
Yep.
You're not supposed to just leave it open.
Mr. Jenks had made a motion to June 5th.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? 3-0. We'll see you on June
Thank you.
5th for lower impact development. Special permit. Thank you.
Not gonna set up.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, continued public hearing, definitive subdivision, Chestnut Meadow, 0 Chestnut Hill Road. It's continued from May 1st. And the continued public hearing for the lower impact development, Chestnut Meadow, 0 Chestnut Hill Road. That's continued from May 1st. I'll ask the town planner to update us on what's happened between then and now.
Point of order, please.
Mr. Connors.
Based on the makeup of the board, 2 members being absent, and that 1 member was absent last time, the Mullen Rule allowing only 1 missed meeting, and the court finding that even in substantive matters discussed can knock that out, I would request that we're not going to present any information tonight.
No information.
No discussion.
So then the only action would be to
Continue.
continue the two hearings, and Chestnut goes, I've got here July 10th. Is that,
I believe that's correct. I can check that and get back to you.
but it's certainly not before June 5th.
It's not before June 5th.
Filing was April 5th. It was filed with
Well, 60 days for the, so that would be June 5th, wouldn't it? Subdivision. Sixty days?
No, I believe it's 105.
Oh, you mean for subdivision?
Subdivision. Go ahead. Just want to double check, make sure that the town planner is on the same page as the rest of us.
It's
Or-
a definitive with no preliminary.
Has anybody, oh, I can't bring this up. I don't want to bring it up.
We're gonna be right on schedule.
So it's your desire to continue the hearings with no action tonight.
Please.
Mr. Jenks? What time, let's get a time. We didn't do a time on the other, on Kane, so let's do 7 o'clock for Kane. Oh, I see, yeah. Okay.
And then we have a discussion, so maybe
8:15 for Kane Crossing,
and maybe
8:30. 8,
this goes faster,
okay,
so
8:20.
maybe 20 for Chestnut Meadow.
8:20, George?
Fine.
On,
Both
yes,
simultaneously?
yes, on June 5th.
Thank you. Going to vote that?
Mr. Jenks?
We're doing the public hearing on the definitive plan.
And the lower impact development, simultaneous, 8:20.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of the applicant's request, I move that we continue the public hearing on the definitive subdivision and the special permit for lower impact development for Chestnut Meadow, 0 Chestnut Hill Road, continued to June 5th at 8:20 PM.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Very good. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda,
Freddie's waiting for
yes, Freddie.
I'm just seeing what's, Freddie Gillespie, 78 Southville Road. I'm seeing what's up on the screen, and it's dated May 9th and reference new plans. Are there new plans for this that the Open Space Commission could get a set of?
They may have been put in your mailbox by Elizabeth. I'll double check with her tomorrow morning and we'll get you a full set.
All right, I'll take a look on my way out. If they're there, I'll send you an email saying they're there. I didn't notice.
Okay, but we'll make sure you get one tomorrow.
And any of these letters.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is, 7:35, we have to wait a couple of minutes for Ken's Foods. So, we'll jump to, Mimi, did you want to talk about the second to the last item on the agenda?
Oh, Marlborough Road?
74-76 Marlborough Road, release of bond, and the discussion is trees and open space, is that correct?
Yeah, it appears that a portion of the open space has been mowed down and reseeded, where the new tree plantings are on the south side of the site. And my question is a process question on how are the planning board's decisions enforced?
What we try to do is clearly define the open space and what type of open space it is. That should be in the decision. If it's not, then it makes it more difficult to enforce any requirements for open space. If it is, then the conditions that exist today are compared against the conditions at the time of approval. And we usually would ask, if it's not a huge project, we'd ask the town planner to do that in conjunction with perhaps members of the Open Space Commission. And then if it can be verified that what's there today is different than what it should be, then the town planner would notify the property owner and try to get it resolved. If it doesn't get resolved, then we would normally call the proponent in and try to resolve it with the full board. And if that still doesn't work, then we call the open space police.
And the other condition was that the open space is referenced in all the deeds, and one of the lots was sold, and there is no reference to the open space in the deed. And the other one is pending.
So the town planner was not here at the time of that subdivision approval. That's a two-lot subdivision. 2005? Wow, that's a long time ago. Yeah. So I know Karina was working on this today with you, and you were doing some research on it. You want to go ahead on that, Karina?
Yeah, we discussed it a little bit, just to get an understanding of the history of what was there before. The developer, the builder, approached the building department seeking a certificate of occupancy. He was told to come over to planning and confirm that we were on board with it. When he came over, I researched the project and realized there were some conditions. One of those conditions were these 10 pine trees that needed to be installed, and which is the condition that stood out to me. Upon letting the builder know that, and I spoke with the building commissioner as well, and he and I agreed that the bond would not be released and he would not get his certificate of occupancy until at least the trees were installed. So the developer did install the trees. I went and looked at them. I saw them there. I didn't recognize any other concern. The building department issued the certificate of occupancy. Now we still hold a $3,000 bond to ensure that the trees were installed, and I would imagine could also make sure they live. And then Ms. Luttrell brought up a good point. She was concerned with some disturbance in the open space area.
Yeah, but I can't,
Mr. Jenks?
I just realized where this property is. I wasn't on the planning board when any of this took place. Nonetheless, I may very well have a conflict on this, and because of that, I'm going to recuse myself.
Thank you. So we'll let the town planner continue. Was there more, Karina, on your research? Or what's been going on with this?
No, that was pretty much it. Mimi indicated to me earlier today that perhaps there was a concern with some fresh grass seed in the open space area, at least in the vicinity where the trees were planted. So I didn't know how critical that was, and that we would discuss it at this meeting.
Were you able to look at the conditions of approval or the plans that would, if there was, I mean, that was 12 years ago, and I think we've gotten better at defining what happens in open space over the last 12 years, but unless it's clearly defined, it might be hard to enforce. I see.
This one? But this, in the planning board's certificate of approval of a definitive subdivision that was filed with the town clerk on August 17th, 2005, condition number 6 references the vegetative buffer that's shown. Then there was also a condition, number 2, which was the condition of question with Miss Luttrell. Regarding how the open space area is maintained.
And referenced in the deeds of conveyance.
Now, there is a reference to the plan, per se, where the open space is shown, but it doesn't specifically in the deed say what condition 2 refers to. Right.
Yeah, it references the landscape buffer, but it does not reference, not landscape buffer, landscape easement, I think, which is along the road. But it doesn't reference, there's no reference at all to the open space.
That's correct, not directly, just indirectly to the plan, which shows the open space, but there's no language specifically to open space.
And those trees, 8 to 10 feet high, white pines? Those aren't white pines, are they? The buffer shall consist of 8 to 10 foot high white pine trees planted 10 feet on center. Are those 10 feet on center? I don't know if anybody,
I took a drive by the site and took these pictures. They seem to be located in the right place. I'm not sure of the species, that's not my specialty. But they seemed close to the correct height and spacing and offset from the property line. But there were other issues as far as Ms. Luttrell was concerned. This picture shows you how far it is off the wall, off this existing stone wall to the left. One more picture. No, that doesn't show you anything.
What I would suggest is, maybe, and you can disagree with this, Mimi, but maybe ask the town planner to huddle back with the zoning enforcement officer and get his opinion relative to what's in writing here and relative to what's on the property. Get his opinion, and then bring it back when we have more of a full board to see what the board, if the building inspector says, it's close enough, whether it's white pines or whatever kind of evergreens those are, they are 10 feet on center, they are 8 to 10 feet high, they're in the right location, why don't you live with it? We can respect his opinion or take other action. But I think probably should have the rest of the board look into this. And then, but until then, you say we have 3,000?
Approximately, yeah, 3,000 and plus interest, maybe 3,007.
Right. So what we would do is make sure that the trees make it, they don't die right away, or and then at some point when we're convinced that the trees are gonna survive, and if it's acceptable to the board, then we would consider releasing the bond. Yes, Freddie?
Hi, Freddie Gillespie again, speaking as a citizen. I haven't refreshed my memory on the decision. Is the $3,000 bond only for the trees? It didn't, so there's no resolution to the fact that they don't meet the requirement in the decision for the deed reference to open space? The town has spent over probably, in the end, close to $60,000 getting input on how to do this correctly. And I think in this case, the planning board did a pretty good job of getting what was needed in the decision. And it would just be a shame to walk away from the decision following through on what the requirements are and just saying it's okay not to meet those requirements of the planning board's decision.
Yeah, well, that's their writing.
That's right, that's
Yeah,
them
that's
saying
their
it.
writing. Yeah, the
attached to
trustee
this.
submitted the 3,000 and refers it to the trees only. But, no, the deed, the inconsistency relative to the deeds for the two properties would have to be resolved too.
For the 3,000 to return?
We'd have to discuss that with the rest of the board, but again,
Just seems like this is an opportunity to start getting it, creating a better process moving forward on this one.
okay. Anything else?
Is this rescheduled to another meeting?
We're gonna, yeah, it will be. We'll see what the town planner and the building inspector come up with and put it on another agenda. Anything else, Mrs. Luttrell, on this one?
No.
See, it also says on the accountant type this in,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I'll have to find a document.
So now we are able to open reopen the continued public hearing for Ken's Food, major site plan and lower impact development, 325 Turnpike Road. That would be Bill. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Set up first, then grab a microphone.
You bet.
Introduce yourself and your team. But before you do that, I'll ask the town planner to update the board and the public on what's transpired between the previous edition of the public hearing, which was on May 1st. Seeing Mr. Jenks come back, we now have we have the three-member board.
My name is Scott Doty. I'm with John G. Crow Associates. We're civil engineers, landscape architects for the project. With me tonight is Mr. Bill Pizzoni from Day Pitney, counsel for Ken's Foods, and Jim Bourne. of Ken's Foods. And I was waiting, Mr. Chairman, you were going to have the town planner, I think, perhaps update us? Okay. Because or else I'd go on. I could do that myself or help her along, too.
The public hearings for Ken's Foods at 325 Turnpike Road for major site plan approval and lower impact development, a special permit, were opened on May 1st. In the interim, that was the initial submission, was also submitted to Fuss and O'Neill for review comments. They responded with review comments, to which the applicant responded back. And they're currently at Fuss and O'Neill under review. We've not received review comments back, I believe. You did?
No, we did. You did, and we also did this afternoon.
Oh,
You received, okay.
about what time? Because
Yeah, it was,
Didn't hear.
I think it was late afternoon, Corinna. It was
Yeah,
late afternoon,
it would
yeah.
have to be after
Yeah.
6:15.
We received a letter today, dated today,
Uh-huh.
to Ms. Quinn from Dan Delaney.
Via email. Okay, it's
Via
probably in
email.
my inbox.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'd be happy to update the board on what that letter is all about.
okay, it's also our understanding that you're currently on with Conservation Commission,
Yes,
going through notice of intent and stormwater permitting, which is, might trigger some site plan revisions.
that's correct.
Possibly.
There are a few changes that may occur on the plan. Questionable whether or not they affect the decisions of this board. One's the size of a pipe, and some changing of perhaps once the two wetland consultants agree, the town's consultants and our consultant agree on the wetland line, they'll be established. But none of those items, except the pipe change, size change, constitute really a change to the plans as presented.
But you do intend to submit updated plans to the planning department?
Yes, we
Based
do.
on those decisions by Conservation when they come out?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The letter received today went through all of the items that Fuss and O'Neill had brought one by one, as we had responded to one by one in our response to their comments. It's, I think, once the board has a chance to see the letter, I think they'll agree that that all of the non-discretionary items that had been asked about or clarification had been asked have all been addressed to the satisfaction of Fuss and O'Neill. The only things that remain that perhaps for the board to decide upon are those items which Fuss and O'Neill can only advise and not provide anything besides that, except to mention that it's the planning board's discretion to accept the waivers that we've proposed. All of those items that they indicate that need to be addressed by the planning board are those items we presented at our last hearing 2 weeks ago, at the opening hearing. The waivers from the planting, those type of things. The waiver from the number of parking spaces, strict compliance to that. It's those type of items that are there. Even in some cases, some of those items that are discretionary for the board, Fuss and O'Neill has said they make sense to them, and they understand why we presented them as such.
Question, are there lingering comments from Fuss and O'Neill, only because I haven't seen it yet, regarding the stormwater report?
Yeah,
There are
they're
remaining?
satisfied with everything all the responses we gave them in the stormwater report. A lot of those there were some typographical errors, and they wanted to understand clarification on the outlet control structure, things like that. I'd be happy to give you my copy, actually, of the letter.
Thank you. I just haven't had a chance to look at it, because it just came in.
Yeah, we just got it.
Go get a copy from my desk. see
No.
when it came.
No,
Okay.
that's fine. That'll get forwarded to the planning board members tomorrow
Okay.
morning. We'll take it from there.
Yeah.
So even, this is good. This is good service, I think. But because of the knowledge that you're going to be revising the plan, I think, and I won't speak for the whole board, but at the last meeting, I was, except for those few loose ends that we had, I was fine with your site plan and ready to, vote. So when the other boards are, conservation, when you get the revised plan, we'll, if you want, we'll continue this to June 5th. Hopefully, it maybe at that time, you'll have the revised plan, and the back and forth with Fuss and O'Neill will be resolved. Go ahead.
Also, there were no additional comments from town departments.
No additional comments.
Right, we were just waiting for conservation's comments.
Is that you, on the revised plans that we had submitted, there were no additional comments, is that right? Is that,
Come on.
that's,
Well, they have just been submitted on Thursday or Friday.
that's correct,
The 9th or
yes.
10th. So that was on the original set, there were no comments. So we haven't received any additional comments, but they haven't had enough time
Yeah.
to probably digest them.
And in response, Mr. Chairman, yes, we do expect to have the revised plans for the June 5th meeting. But I just wanted to also just point out again that those changes are a pipe size and generally wetland lines, that kind of thing. And I think that it's our hope that we could work towards closure at the meeting on the 5th, and even maybe perhaps there'd be some way we might be able to assist in helping to write the decision or any drafts of this decision. And I believe that's probably what Mr. Pizzoni may want to address also.
Yeah, the thing is, when the board votes, it votes on the plan that's on the table.
Yes.
So until that plan is finished, we won't vote. Yes, Bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Good
Yeah, Bill Pizzoni, I represent Ken's Foods. Yeah, we understand that the last draft of the plan, basically, it was determined instead of building the Cadillac with the bigger pipe and the stone in the trench and on the sidewalls, they prefer that we just use a smaller pipe and just some crushed stone on the bottom and not on the sides. So it's really just a reduction down in the plan. So it's something that I'm sure will be done shortly. Everybody will have it. Fuss and O'Neill was at that hearing. They did not seem to have any issues with it. I don't expect that we'll get any more comments from them based on that. Their letter today, as Scott reiterated to you, primarily they're set with everything except for the waivers. And those are things that have been proposed to you previously. So I think we're in a position where we might be able to at least start a draft of a decision so that when we come in on the 5th, we can maybe get it voted on at that point. We're under the gun from a construction standpoint. We want to get going, as soon as we're able to here. Conservation, I believe, is going to be closing their hearing and voting on their meeting that week as well, because I'm supposed to be working with Beth to create that decision at this point. So I'd like to be working on both of them, so that week of the 5th, we can wrap everything up if possible. Okay?
Okay. Mr. Jenks?
I'm fine with that. That's,
Mrs.
plan.
Luttrell?
I have a question on waiving zoning. I was under the impression that the planning board could waive rules and regulations, but you required a variance for zoning. Although there are specifications in our bylaw that allow for some flexibility, like in parking, there's like a temporary reduction that the planning board would check every 3 years, and if they didn't need the parking, would just renew it, which isn't completely waiving the bylaw, but it serves the same purpose. And the same with landscaping. You can authorize different specifications without waiving the whole bylaw.
Right. All the requests for waivers don't require variance. They require discretion of this board to make sure that it's practical and appropriate. And that's all that's left, really. And just one other point on the beaver issue. We do have the gentleman that's handling that going out and installing, I forget what it is, but it's a pipe underneath their den, basically, so the water will continue to flow. And we're hopeful that with the assistance of the neighbors, they've allowed us to get on the property. And again, Ken's has stepped to the plate to pay the tariff to make this work, because they're tired of having a pond in their front lawn as well.
All without hurting the beavers?
All without hurting the beaver. Not trapping them or anything.
Just a small question. You know, my office is right next to Beth, the conservation agent, so we have a chance to discuss these projects, and we met together and everything. Are you still planning on some kind of a review meeting with Beth about the project prior to the next meeting?
Well, I'm going to meet with her to draft the decision.
Oh, the decision.
Yeah.
And
Yes, if you may be referring to, we're having a meeting Wednesday morning
Yeah.
Right.
here. And that's to go over in detail some of the comments that Lucas Environmental has had on the project. And the majority of that is about wetland line and delineation. Then we're going to go to the site and settle on the wetland flags.
Okay, because that was my last question, was where there's still,
Yeah.
was the delineation still open, in a sense? There was some,
Well, we made it clear to the board the other night that if it's got to move 5 feet or 10 feet in one direction, we don't care, because it's so far out of where our build area is.
That's correct. It won't affect
It won't affect the project.
the design. or
basically.
anything, yeah.
and the only reason I bring that up for clarification for the board members is that one of the comments from Fuss and O'Neill was that there's a no-work area,
True.
and the construction of this channel, or the cleaning of it, was within that work area, which was a comment to us as well. So that's why I went to conservation to find out what was going on, so that was settled before. You know, that could impact where that line is on the plan, or, you know, the no-work zone.
Right, that's correct. If the resource area does change based on the meeting Wednesday, it'll change the limits of that no work zone that both the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board respect. And however, just to reiterate, it will not affect the change in design. We're doing what we have to improve water quality, and we're not, and change a pipe that's headed toward an existing head wall and reusing an existing head wall. So the other work that's within that 20-foot area is also removal of pavement and a creation of a new vegetated buffer zone. We're reestablishing a buffer zone to the wetlands in those areas. So we think that it's pretty clear that any of that work within the no work zones is beneficial to the environment and beneficial to stormwater.
So if there's nothing else tonight, we'll, the approval period on my notes here is June 10th. Is that right, Bill?
couple of
Do you
days.
agree with that?
Yeah, I believe it is.
That's
yeah.
that's correct, yeah.
June 10th? So there's no need to request an extension
No.
at this time. So if it's okay, we'll continue these public hearings to June 5th, which is our next scheduled meeting.
Okay.
And that would be at 9. 'We're at the 8:40?
That's 8:20, depending on how fast.
Okay,
It's gonna go on, but at least they have to.
8:40.
40? Okay.
There's two before you, so it may,
One of them isn't Park Central, is it?
no, it may go a little later than that, but sometimes things wrap up and
Yeah.
we're able to get on them earlier. So that's why we're doing this now.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Mr.
timely.
Jenks? We'll combine them, right? Combine them at the same time. Mr. Jenks.
Mr. Chairman, I move that at the applicant's request, we continue the public hearing on major site plan and special permit for LID on the Ken's Foods, Inc. Project at 325 Turnpike Road to May 5th at... Time flies. June 5th at 8:40 PM.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? 3-0.
Great.
So between now and then, we will get in touch with the absent members tonight and get them up to speed
Sure.
so that if possible and appropriate, then we would be able to vote on the 5th.
Yeah, and I'll work with Karina to start drafting something. Great, thank you.
Very good,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
You can hold on to that. You want, okay, you got
I
yours,
know,
okay.
I was gonna say, time travel, travel back. Ken's would have been happy. Ken's would have been happy with a May 5th approval.
Pre-approval, yeah.
Well, hopefully you guys get to go home and watch the Celtics.
Next item on the agenda is the Celtics, modification to definitive subdivision, Stonebrook Village, 15 Oregon Road, and modification to an approved major site plan, Stonebrook Village, 15 Oregon Road. I'll ask the town planner to update us on that. Those.
A public hearing was advertised for a modification to a definitive subdivision plan and an approved major site plan for Stonebrook Village at 15 Oregon Road, per a request for a road name change for the subdivision. That hearing was advertised, scheduled for this evening, May 15th. On May 11th, 2017, a representative for the applicant from Capital Group Properties delivered a letter to the planning department withdrawing their application for street name modification via a definitive subdivision and major site plan approval modifications. And here we are.
So based on that, the public hearing notice, which you have, right?
Yes.
I don't see the need to read that since we, I guess maybe to formalize it, we would vote to accept their withdrawal and therefore never open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yes,
in a
Mr.
butter to that project, so I would have to recuse myself and not be able to vote.
In that case, we'll let the minutes,
We don't have a quorum.
right, so we'll let the minutes reflect the reading of the letter from Capital Group asking to withdraw the application. And based on that, we will not read the public hearing notice and we will not open the public hearing.
Do I need to read the withdrawal letter?
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
This is a letter from Capital Group Properties, May 11th, 2017, to Karina Quinn, Town Planner, Southbury Planning Board. Dear Karina, we are formally withdrawing our application for the street name modification to the definitive subdivision and major site plan approval planning board decisions regarding Stonebrook Village. Please let me know if you need me to appear before the board on May 15th, 2017 at 8:15 p.m. Sincerely, Daniel Ruiz, Permitting Manager, Capital Group Properties.
Tip-off is now. We only have one other item, and that's the planner's report. Karina?
Okay, for this meeting's planners report, I only have 2 items. The first one is kind of a preliminary announcement for people viewing and people in the audience regarding 10A Fitzgerald Lane, a affordable housing unit that the town will be re-advertising on a first-come, first basis to resell the property to as an affordable housing unit. When that marketing material comes out, we'll present that formally to the board and for the viewers and the people attending to be made aware of it, to pass the word.
Can I just ask you, who has the lead on that? Who is responsible to get that done?
That process is a joint effort between the Affordable Housing Trust Committee, spearheaded with Brian Schifrin and Bonnie Feniff on the Shopsy subcommittee, or the Shopsy group, as well as Aldo Cipriani as town council, providing the legal services for the documents for resale. And then we have a real estate company represented and owned by Karen Moran from MCO, who will be providing the marketing information and legwork to get that unit resold.
Was that it?
Oh, no, one more planner's report item. Just to let the board know, you're probably aware that Lisa Bracchio was elected as Board of Selectmen. So she has resigned from the Open Space Preservation Commission, the Open Space Design Bylaw Subcommittee, and the Deed Research Committee, of which we'll have to find 3 new people to replace her in her absence now. She'll be missed, the short time that I did know her. She is, yeah.
If there's nothing else, that completes our agenda tonight. Mr. Jenks?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Anyone from the audience? Terry? Guess not. All in favor? 3-0, we're adjourned.